what kind of segues on to our next question is what kind of reforms would you make to the UN if you could? Um,
I've got several in mind.
you've written an
Um,
essay on this, and you can read that on the website.
yeah, so the first one I would like to mention is enlargement. Uh, Nowadays, the UN consists of 193 members. However, if you look at the Security Council's membership, nothing has changed except, well, the replacement of the USSR by the Russian Federation in the 1990s. So the UNSC is often criticized for not being reflective of today's realities, which is understandable. There's been changed global order and power relations. The victorious World War II powers do not wield the same power and prestige today, and especially questioned is the UK's and French statuses, for
Wow,
instance.
how dare you, Clara? How dare you question the French? Okay, okay, fine. You can question them all day. All right. How even the dog's been alarmed by this, Clara.
I'm being objective here, okay?
How dare you, Clara? We don't do objectivism in this country. You know, throw objectivism in the bin. Put that on a bus. Let's fund the NHS instead. That's what they'll say. But 100%, I kind of agree with your point. Sorry, I kind of cut you off there. 100%, I agree that perhaps it should have the EU as a group instead of having so many Western powers in, or so the UK, which isn't a military superpower anymore, or the French. They can go around bullying sort of African and Arab nations, but if it comes to a big, much stronger country, the UK's been like, no, I'm sitting this one up, bro. Um,
So
so yeah.
there's been quite a few proposals, and the debate on enlargement was particularly active in the 90s. And I think two models were proposed back then, uh, out of which the 2+3 model, which presupposed Germany and Japan to become permanent members, and then one country from each continent would acquire access to the non-permanent group. And this probably had the best chance to succeed because
But
it was quite sensible proposal. Nevertheless, debates were eventually abandoned. It, yeah,
yeah,
and
so
the reason for this was obviously the vast opposition from other countries, very often rooted in the regional rivalry. Um, that is very often the case. Uh, I think I think on the other side, I think enlargement could also prove to impede the council's efficiency. Um, so currently, countries such as India, Brazil, or South Africa should be considered in the enlargement debates, as these have over time acquired great status in their respective regions.
these are BRIC countries as well, right? The sort of top sort of developing
Yes,
countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
that's right. So yeah, so that's for one. Secondly, um, if there still remains someone who's afraid of Germany and its power potential, then I think a single EU seat could be a plausible alternative to that. Although I doubt there is still somebody who is really afraid of Germany and
Depends who you ask, to be honest, Clara. I mean, the 1940s is over, but people still think we still live there. 100%. I think an EU seat would make far more sense, but I guess you'd still have debates over things. Um, so, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I think if there was an EU seat, that firstly there could be no more talk of Western Europe's overrepresentation. Secondly, it would solve the problem of having too many members in the council. And thirdly, such initiative could eventually create a momentum to advance some structural reforms and would maybe put to shame countries which are blocking any reform, whilst encouraging other regional organizations to embrace the same path.
I think
But I I acknowledge that it is uncertain whether this would be a plausible option even now after Brexit, because
here you
Britain
are
is
again. You know, the foreigner taking a dig at us, man. I can't win out here, man. What is
well,
what is
Britain is not.
I didn't bring you on this podcast to bash this country, Clara. How could you, man? I can't believe this.
No offense, really, but
Yeah, start the
Britain.
sentence with no offense, man. You've already offended me. You caused the offense. There's no
Yeah.
takebacks. But no, I 100% again. You know, I keep cutting you off here. I know, but to make stupid jokes, but you know, we're not the power we once were. You know, the UK, and it was something we have to get to grips with. I think Brexit has kind of humbled the country a bit. Or it will humble the country, I think, to an extent. But yeah, do you think taking the UK out of the UNSC would be a smart move, or
If it was just the UK, then no, no point really. It has to be more comprehensive reform.
great? So we keep our seat by default. Big up. You know, that's what I'm talking about. Easy win. But yeah, no, 100%. I think if we kind of the rotational members is a good idea, I think, but the fact is, I think the key problem with the UNSC, and I think it's something you would mention anyways, is the veto. I think the veto is the main problem with the UNSC. What do you think about that?
See the veto power as an anachronistic privilege that should be abandoned, really.
Should we explain the veto first? Basically, UNSC members can veto, I think it's any kind of UN actions. So if the UN want to sanction a country, if you're a member of the UNSC, you can say no. Right?
So it can only agree on resolutions when the P5 are in agreement.
P5.
Yeah, permanent 5.
Okay. Learn something new every day. So that does cause, we've seen that cause huge problems on an international level with a country like Syria. Although perhaps if the West had intervened in Syria, it could end up like Libya, which is looking a lot worse because there's no kind of exit strategy or kind of strategy to actually help these countries. It's all get rid of the leader and then we out. Good luck, guys. Perhaps it's a good thing in some ways, but you do see nation states kind of get away with a lot of things. I think the US has protected Israel with its power of the veto consistently over the last, I think, 15 years. I can honestly say during the Obama era and the Trump era, Israel has been mostly protected from UNSC resolutions. I don't know how much you agree with that, Clara.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I think that matters of national sovereignty, they always resurface and often outrank collective interests. And the veto power is too often used for narrow national reasons. And I think that decisions made under this mandate lack credibility.
What reforms would you make then? If I said, look, I'll give you a couple of reforms. I'll give you the magic wand. You can make a few changes. What kind of reforms would you be looking at?
Well, I would abolish the right to veto.
So how would the UNSC make decisions? Would it be based on the majority of members then?
Well, from the top of my mind, I would say yes.
So would you abolish the UNSC altogether, the Security Council, and just say it's up to the UN as individual members like countries should decide on things rather than having just 5 permanent members having the power to decide things? Do you think that would be a much better system?
No, because there is too many members in the General Assembly. It would be hard to agree.
What if you just went for a narrow majority? Just said as long as 51% agree, or just over 50% agree, then that there's a resolution right there.
I don't have a magical solution to that really, but I think there should be official debate on this topic among the state officials and academics to try and develop some sort of a proposal to this issue, because I think preserving the right to veto It was meant to ensure and deliver greater efficiency, but that idea has obviously failed to materialize. And there is so many issues over which the Council has been in deadlock. So it really appears undesirable from the moral point of view of the UN to preserve the right of veto, because it actually prevents the UN Security Council from enforcing measures to end violence, as it happened, for example, in 1971, when the USSR vetoed a resolution which demanded a ceasefire in Kashmir.
Damn, you got examples.
Yeah, so this is solely my personal view, but I think there might be other viable alternatives that are obscured to me.
Yep.
In terms of abolishing the veto, but I believe that until the veto system is abolished, the UNSC will remain an arena of power and realpolitik, and it will remain a mere reflection of its members, and cannot just be expected to remedy every situation equally effectively, or at all, for that matter. So I am all in for some sort of official forum of academics and politicians to sort of establish a couple of proposals on the reform of the Security Council and their decision making, because the veto power just doesn't do it for me.
I would hope to see you in those forums debating someone, which would be quite funny. I would change the veto. I would make it so you need two members of the UNSC, and say maybe 2 permanent members and 1 temporary member to veto, if that makes sense. So I would change it from one permanent member to maybe 3, or say 2 plus 1, and I would probably change to, if it involves your country, you cannot veto it. It would be up to the other member states. Maybe that would cause more problems. Like, the US, you got to stop locking kids in cages. The US being like, we're going to veto that. Like, actually, you can't because it involves your country. And the US being like, dang.
I think that would be... I think they could just bring lobbying in. You know, it would, like, if it was a resolution that the US would like to veto, something related to Israel, let's say.
Yeah.
And it couldn't veto the resolution, they would just ask another country to veto it.
Yeah, they'd probably try and grab us, because the US loves bringing the UK down, and probably like some other third country like India's like, yo, India, you're going to veto this, and we'll send you some, or we won't punish you over the way you've treated Muslim people, or if there was like a resolution, say, against China for the way they've treated the Uyghur Muslims, perhaps China would probably have to do the same thing, be like, yo, India, I know we recently fought, but we're buds, we both hate Muslims, so maybe we can come to an agreement here. 100% I agree with what you're saying. Is there anything you want to add, or?
With regards to the veto power, I'm all done. Okay. But I've got a couple of other suggestions.
All right, shoot. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So another point I would like to make is that there is no mechanism to prevent unilateral action. So it is closely linked to the veto power, basically. And the UN Security Council is unable to prevent unilateral actions of one of its members, as it happened in the case of the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. And Saddam Hussein even counted on the division in the council and anticipated its paralyzing effect.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember reading this, actually. Maybe we read the same article on it, which was that no one expected the US and the UK to take unilateral action like that. Or I guess it'd be multi, because there's 2 of us. And so Saddam was like, yeah, you can't do anything because you're deadlocked in the UNSC.
Yeah, and he carried on defying UN resolutions.
Yes. And then, because he was always playing coy over whether he had nukes or not. He was like, maybe I
Yeah.
do, maybe I don't. There's nothing you can do about it. And the US is like, all right, cool, hold my AK. I'm about to jump into your country. And then boom, Saddam got taken out. Sorry, I interrupted you again. Just if you want to carry on your point.
That's alright. Yeah, but so he carried on defying UN resolutions, but he didn't expect a unilateral invasion by the US. And there is another still relevant example, and that is the Palestine issue, which cannot be addressed consistently due to the strong alliance between Israel and the US, who, according to the data from 2019, I know it's a bit old, they voted 44 times against such resolutions on behalf of Israel. So, unfortunately, the absence of democratic principles and practice continues to infringe upon the UNSC's legitimacy and credibility, and therefore hindering the overall image of the organization. So, definitely, this should be addressed. So, and the last reform I'd like to suggest concerns UN's military forces. So, in my opinion, if the UNSC is expected to address crises effectively, it also needs its own standing forces. But in the current state of affairs, it continues to be dependent on its member states to provide their military forces when required. Expectedly, modern states that have a technologically developed military at their disposal tend to be reluctant to contribute more in violent crises, which is the implication of the financial costs it bears.
I think.
And again,
sorry.
the national question resurfaces as the respective governments of these states then must justify to their domestic constituencies why it is essential for them to contribute and provide their resources. So, in my opinion, creating a permanent military answering directly to the UN would contribute to greater effectiveness when responding to conflict, as it would allow faster deployment of forces. Yeah. So,
sorry.
On a concluding note, the scope and power of the UN Security Council are constrained by structural weaknesses in the whole of the UN system, which to a great extent relies on outdated framework and practice, and this is furthermore impeded by the impact of national politics. And although the UN as a whole remains the only legitimate global body in the eyes of the majority of the people, I think it should continue to put more effort into gradual reform to persuade the critics about its credibility and that its legitimacy is not artificially constructed and maintained by the once great powers who refuse to give up their privileges.
Sorry.
Yes.
No, it's fine. No, have you got anything more you want to add? Because my points are probably not going to be as important as yours. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, maybe just that for all its flaws, I think the UNSC has successfully served as a platform for regular and sustained contact to discuss strategies and conflict management between countries. So, in the sense, it has made a great impact and has, without a doubt, succeeded in preventing another global conflict, even though the scourge of war as such could not have been eliminated, as the UNSC just does not hold a mandate of a global policeman. Nonetheless, it should be more reflective of today's realities, and there really are reforms, some reforms that are much needed. And I think if the UNSC is to be, or if the veto power is to be retained, then there needs to be some sort of a reciprocity mechanism employed that would observe its usage and penalize pertinent abuse of that power. Otherwise, I think the institution loses its credibility, and that eventually leads to a loss of legitimacy. And I think that would surely mean utter disaster. And that's not just for the people that rely on the assistance of the UN, but also for all humanity, as it would inevitably dash all hopes for a functional international society. So until the current system is reformed, I think the UNSC cannot be fully expected to do more than reflect the tendencies of those it represents.
Okay.
The Permanent Five very often needs to put the UN aspirations ahead of their national interests if it is expected to be effective in dealing with the issues that it faces. And I hope this will come into reality one day.
Well, I wouldn't wait up or hold your breath on that one, Clara, because I can't see that happening. A couple of points I want to add, probably more stupid points. In fairness, I think as much as we want the UN to reform, given the fact that the veto ability is so strong, I can't imagine that the UN, the UNSC would want to give up. The permanent members would want to give up the powers that they have. Also, I doubt you've seen this, but there's a Dave Chappelle skit where he says that someone tries to tell him off or something like that, and he's like, "Have you got a military?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Well, you better back up, and then you better keep going. You better keep backing up. You ain't got no military." I think that's pretty good. I think it's pretty relevant. He's also got another one where he says modern problems require modern solutions, which I found pretty funny as well. And so I think that's the third point I was going to make, but I can't remember what it doesn't matter anyways. Stupid points. But yeah, 100% I agree. I think the UN, the UNSC does need massive, reformations. I think you've put some good points across. And so we'll see in the future, because you can only be deadlocked for so long until some idiot takes unilateral action. Looking at you, George W. Bush. So yeah, who knows at this point. So yeah, I think we're good on that point. The reforms you'd make to the UN, right, Clara?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Sorry, it's like dead silence there because it's like a noise gate on this app as well. So there's like a slight audio delay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's not you. It's the app. But yeah, it's good. It's good. No, I like Discord.